coming to you live from Tennessee, from the east to the west. We are talking Cowboys everything. And you just entered
the Cowboy Zone.
Welcome back to another episode of the Cowboy Zone. I'm your host, Marcus Jones, the Blood City Cowboy, coming to you live from Memphis, Tennessee. Once again, I'm rolling solo. My guy Lambo still taking care of personal matters. But we are here today to do a game recap of the blowout that happened against the Falcons, and also to give you guys a breakdown of this week's major game against the Kansas City Chiefs. So we're going to talk about all the key matchups, some of the things you guys should look out for, just to make sure you guys know what you're looking at come Sunday. So before we get started, make sure you get in the comments. Let me know that you're here. Also, make sure you like, make sure you share, and make sure you subscribe. Got my social media going at the bottom of the screen. So make sure you guys stay engaged. Let me know what you think about what we're talking about. And give me your thoughts, questions, and comments. So I see the views are starting to go up. So before we get started, I want to thank you guys for joining me, everybody who's here so far. Make sure you get in the comments. Let me know that you're there. Got a lot to talk about tonight. Great matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. I know you guys heard the old saying, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Well, he took it away against Denver, but he gave it back and then some against Atlanta. Great game all around. Probably the most complete game we've played as a team in the past 15 years. Offense, defense, special teams. Had a rare situation where all three starting corners had an interception in the same game. That never happens. Had a punt block for a touchdown. Haven't had that in a very long time. And then our offense as a whole was just rolling. So let's just go in real quick, do a quick game recap of all the stuff that stood out in the game against the Atlanta Falcons. See, we got a comment. Thank you, Mendoza. Appreciate you tuning in. See, we got quite a few people, so if you're there, be sure to send a comment. Let me know that you're there, and we'll get into this game recap.
Game recap.
I almost thought about not going live tonight because I was watching the Star Game podcast. They come in on right before me, and Wednesdays are just one of my busiest days. I'm not free until 8:30. But I was able to finish a little bit early today. Caught a little bit of Star Game, what they're talking about. And as soon as 8:30 hit, their special guest came in. So I really hate I have to miss that. So for you guys that are watching right now, make sure you go to the Star Game group and catch the replay of that interview with the guest they have. If anything, just to see her, because that is a beautiful woman. So, game recap. Let's start off with the offense. First of all, Michael Gallup was back, and he made a major impact on the way this offense was producing. The biggest thing that he does, he allows CeeDee Lamb to go into the slot. And CeeDee Lamb, as an outside receiver, has shown to be in this second year probably a top 10, top 15 receiver. But when you put him in the slot, he is far and away the best receiver on the field anytime he plays. And just looking at Michael Gallup and how he is, and I see we got Jeff, we got Mendoza. You know what? Pretty relaxed night. If you guys want to join on the screen with me, let me know. I'll send you the link. So just let me know. I'll send the link over to you guys, Jeff, Mendoza. We could talk about this. Looks like we don't have a lot of people joining right now. There are a lot of podcasts going on, so If you guys want to come and talk to me about it instead of sending messages in the comments, let me know. I'll send that link out there and you guys can join me for a few minutes. But yeah, talking about Michael Gallup, his impact of just being able to win one-on-one matchups outside and make toe-tapping catches. As much as we all like Cedric Wilson, those are plays he can't make. He's not able to consistently win on the outside. And Sharon West Terry, thank you for joining. Appreciate you tuning in. So yeah, Michael Gallup gives this offense a different dynamic that we haven't had all year. And CeeDee Lamb takes full advantage of it because the corners can't touch him because he's in the slot. He gets free releases left and right. He's already a big physical receiver with great hands. So he just does whatever he wants, and the rest of the offense just kind of dictates off of what he does. All right, Jeff, just let me know when you're ready, and I'll send you the link over. Talking about the rest of the offense, offensive line played well despite the few penalties Connor Williams has. And I know a lot of people like to complain about Connor and his penalties, but nobody's perfect. In terms of his blocking ability, he's been doing very well. And the penalties are very frustrating, but one of those things you have to realize, I went back and watched those games. Either one of those holding calls would not have been called on any other offensive lineman. So now Connor's problem is he's on the radar for referees. So everything he does is going to be scrutinized. Not saying he's not holding or whatever they call, but there's going to be a more watchful eye on him because now he has a tendency to do it. So that's just one of those things we have to deal with for the rest of the year. In terms of his pass blocking and his run blocking, definitely much improved. Looking at our two tackles, Lyle Collins, I believe he didn't give up a pressure. Overall, great game for him. Then we had Terrence Steele on the opposite side, who I think only gave up 2 pressures. Now, we talked about this last week. The Falcons' pass rush is not good at all. And I know they got Dante Fowler back, but like I said last week, this guy's pretty much just a name at this point. He's a first-round name that people recognize, and people just think he's a great pass rusher. I mean, in the past 2 years, he's just pretty much been a jag. And it showed yesterday in how they played. Offensively, of course, Dak looking good as usual. Showed us that ankle's healthy by trucking a linebacker on the goal line for a touchdown. A lot of accurate passes, throwing off his back foot, making a lot of great completions. So I think this offense is humming again. It's back where it should be. We didn't have Blake Jarwin, but Sean McEwen in his limited catches made some impact plays. And he also made a lot of impact plays when it comes to run blocking. I love to see 12 personnel when they have 2 tight ends and they put them on the same side, because McEwen helps out tremendously in run blocking and pass blocking. And Dalton Schultz is no slouch either when it comes to blocking as well. Yeah, Jeff. He made me scared with that too. But if you go back and watch the mic'd up version of the game, he did say he thought about diving at first, but he saw the linebacker was square and flat-footed, so we just had to run him over to make sure he got the touchdown. I guess because he's been screwed on 1-yard touchdowns so many times this year, he wanted to make sure he got in there. And the best way to do it is to go through the guy instead of diving and taking it to the replay. All right, then we go to the defensive side of the ball. Randy Gregory's first game out. And people were concerned about the pass rush. We put guys like Dorrance Armstrong in, Basham, and Golston, and those guys really stepped up. Stephen White, thank you for joining. Appreciate you tuning in. Those guys were still bringing pressures. We mixed Micah Parsons in at defensive end some more. He got a sack. Armstrong had a sack. A lot of pressures from Basham. Overall, a really good game. And one thing I noticed in that game, I don't think a lot of people noticed it. They played Armstrong a lot inside as a 3-tech. And I didn't realize how much bigger he's gotten over the offseason. Dorrance Armstrong looks like he's put on about 10 to 12 pounds since last year. So he's probably like a legit 265 now, almost 270. So they're playing him at the end spots, and they're also playing him inside so he can use his quickness like he did on that quick inside move against Jalen Mayfield for that sack. So the defensive line was bringing pressure. Linebackers actually had a really good game. I know we talk about Van Der Esch and all his struggles and shortcomings, but this was probably his best game of the year also. Keanu Neal didn't really stand out, but that's actually a good thing. When you can't recognize a guy for a bad play, that means he had a good game. So those guys really came through. Yeah, Mendoza says DA looking to come into his own. I'm looking forward to seeing when they get the real NASCAR package back, when they're able to do Gregory, Osa, Armstrong, and Lawrence. That package is gonna be a game wrecker when we finally get to see it at the end of the year. Because right now, it's really just like one or two guys out there. And I also noticed they played Osa a lot at the defensive end spot. So for you guys that really pay attention to stuff like that in the game, pay attention to that also, because Osa played a lot of defensive ends snaps. And surprisingly, they were right defensive end snaps. I would expect him to play more left defensive end, but he probably played about 5 or 6 snaps as a right defensive end against the left tackle. And he had some good snaps against them. So throwing a lot of wrinkles out there. Dan Quinn is not afraid to mix guys up and see what he has. And especially in this situation where we're missing so many guys on our front seven. Our bookends plus middle talent too, yeah. Also, we got to talk about this. Tristan Hill in his first game back. Now, let me know what you guys thought about Tristan Hill in his first game. When I watched the game, he looked solid, considering he hasn't played football in over a year. I've seen a lot of people criticizing him because he didn't get any pressures. I think he only had maybe 1 sack, but this is a guy who hasn't played football in a year, and he's just trying to get back into the groove of things. One thing that stood out to me, he didn't lose ground. Like Jeff said, solid but nothing fancy. When I look at defensive tackles, and I talk about this all the time, when I'm looking, defensive tackles are not pass rushers. Let me say that first. If you have a pass rushing defensive tackle, that's a bonus. And there are maybe 3 or 4 of them in the entire league that you can consider pass rushing defensive tackles. You got your Aaron Donald, you got your Javon Hargrave for Philly. Outside of that, defensive tackles are made to hold their ground and take up double teams. When I look for a defensive tackle, I look for 2 things. Number 1, does he stay square? That is the most important thing to me for a defensive tackle. And that's one of the problems I have with Quentin Bohanna, is because he never plays square. And people give him credit because he may get in the backfield, but he does so by giving up half of his body and basically choosing one side. And as an offensive lineman, if I'm standing there and there's a guy who's 340 pounds, if he decides to take a side instead of going through me, I'll give him that 10 times out of 10. So if he wants to go left, I'll push him left and take him out. I won. He didn't win, because as a 340-pound guy, nobody's expected him to really just make a play unless he guesses right and they run it right in his gap. So the first thing I look for is does he stay square? Tristan Hill did a great job of staying square. And the second thing I look for is did he maintain his position at the line of scrimmage? He didn't get a lot of penetration, but hopefully that'll come with time. But he did not get pushed backwards. When he was double teamed, he may have gone back a foot, maybe a yard, but it wasn't him getting completely washed out of the play. And when they double teamed him, they had to both stay engaged with him. That's the third thing I look for. A lot of times the problems we had in the past, our defensive tackles were able to be blocked by one guy, and that leaves the center or the guard with just a free release to crack on one of our linebackers and open up a gap. But if you're able to keep two guys on you and keep them engaged, that allows everybody else around you to have one-on-one matchups to win on running plays and passing plays. So, like Jeff said, solid performance. Didn't get any pressures, but he didn't get blown off the ball. He kept the shoulder pad square, which tells me that his strength and his techniques are still pretty good. And it was overall a solid game for him. So I just wanted to put that out there because I know people have been killing him on social media because he didn't make a splash play. But you shouldn't expect for your defensive tackles to make splash plays. If they do, it's a bonus. Again, that's why we have Micah Parsons. That's why we have J-Ron Curse. That's why we have those outside those defensive ends who are both hurt right now. But that's why we have those guys. And exactly, Steven, it allows your linebackers to hit holes. Because if you got two guys engaged on one defensive tackle, that linebacker can shoot right on the other side of that offensive guard or center and hit that gap. Or you got a one-on-one matchup on the outside, and now because the guard and the center are engaged, that gives the defensive end a two-way go. And I didn't want to get technical tonight, but let me put this one out there and then we'll get back to it. So this is something that we lacked. And this is something that held back DeMarcus Lawrence. When our defensive tackles can be blocked one-on-one, let's say with the center, or let's say it starts off center guard blocking. Now, 9 times out of 10, one of those guys is going to release. And if it's two guys blocking the defensive tackle, if the center's normally at a disadvantage because he has to snap the ball. So the guard's always going to help him. If he feels like the center has got his composure and he's able to handle the defensive tackle, now the guard's a free guy. The guard can get a linebacker. The guard can protect the inside on the defensive end, make sure that defensive end has to go around. It opens up so much for an offense. But when you have defensive tackles who make the guard stay engaged with them, now the ends have a two-way go. And if you go back and watch the Micah Parsons sack, that was just him faking outside and going inside. If our defensive tackle wasn't able to keep that guard engaged, that guard would have been right there to help. But because I don't remember who the defensive tackle was on that play, but because that defensive tackle kept the guard engaged, it gave Parsons the ability to make that sack. So one of those things you just got to keep in mind when you're watching the game is not all just like Madden where you just got random pieces moving and somebody opens up. Somebody has to open somebody up. It's a game of matchups. And that's one of the reasons why I've taken the show to more of a key matchup show, because I like to let people know like what to look for in the games outside of just watching the ball at all times. All right. And DJ Dog asked a great question. How do I think about our special teams? I love our special teams. Fossil's getting into his groove. And I talked about this in the preseason. If you go and look at the moves that were made, Fossil brought in special teams aces from other teams. He brought in a Jeremy Sprinkle. He brought in a Basham. He retained a guy like a Luke Gifford. He retained a Francis Bernard. They drafted a guy like Nashawn Wright, who was known for special teams in college. So early in the year, he was taking a lot of chances. But you have to remember, we had a lot of guys out. Malik Turner, another guy. Malik Turner is probably, him and Luke Gifford may be the two most important people to our special teams right now. And I know people are going to say CJ Goodwin. CJ Goodwin is still important in terms of our gunner. But all the other special teams, Turner and Gifford are the engines that make them go, in my opinion. So I love seeing we got Turner, we got Armstrong back, who's a core special teamer. We got Bernard back. Add them with Goodwin and Boss Man Fat, who's been producing. We got a team full of Jeremy Sprinkle. We got a team full of very solid special teamers where in years past, it was just CJ Goodwin and the rest of those guys. Now we got 6 legitimate special teams guys who are all aces. Corey Clement, another guy we brought in. So if you go back and look at that Dorrance Armstrong block, you'll go back and see. And as soon as I say it, DJ Dog, you pointed out definitely. Boss Man Fat's been getting reps at gunner. Him and Malik Turner both have been kind of switching out. They've started to fade Cedric Wilson away from being the gunner like he used to be. I don't know if it's because of injuries or not, but the last 2 to 3 weeks, it's been a lot of Malik Turner, Boss Man Fat. But yeah, our special teams is playing great. They've been covering punts well and kicks well, which is something we haven't done in the past. But you know, if you talk special teams, you'll take me into a 20-minute tangent. So I try to cut it off because we got a lot of matchups to talk about. And another point Stephen White made, talking about quarterbacks stepping up in the pocket. If your tackles can get a push, they can't step up, so they have to stay in line for the ends to smash them. That's another good point also. But my biggest concern, especially when you have super athletic defensive ends like we have when Gregory comes back and Parsons, if my defensive tackles can make that guard stay engaged, that gives both of our ends a two-way go, something they've never had before. And you guys see, if Parsons gets one step on anybody, he's taking it. And especially a 330-pound offensive tackle. So I'm excited to see when we get guys back on the field. Now we got to go to the secondary, and then we'll go to these key matchups because it's a lot to talk about. I'll try to go through it quickly. We're at 25 minutes. I mean, I can use every superlative I can think of about how great this secondary played. I know they didn't have Calvin Ridley. I know we talked about they have a bunch of names, Jag guys in their receiver core, but they're NFL guys, and our corners had to cover them. I mean, we shut down Kyle Pitts after one drive. Not one game, not one half, not one quarter. All his damage was done in one drive. And after that, they put the clamps on him. That was covering him with Jordan Lewis, covering him with Trayvon Diggs. They were bracketing him with LVE, who had a solid game. He won't get a lot of notoriety because he didn't make a lot of plays. But if you go back and watch, he was a part of that bracket that helped keep Kyle Pitts contained and stop them from running the ball. Jordan Lewis, this was hands down the best game I've seen him play in Dallas. This is the game that I wished I saw from him 3 years ago, 4 years ago when he came out of Michigan. The guy knows how to get his hands on the ball. I don't know what it was in Atlanta's offensive route concepts that allowed him to be able to see the ball as good as he did, or maybe it's just him improving. We'll find out this week for sure. But this was definitely his best game of the year. DJ Dog, we're definitely about to talk about this, and I could really just circle this and shut the show off, because this is the way the teams beat the Chiefs. And Stephen White, thank you for pointing it out. It was AB who got his hands on the ball, J. Luke. You're definitely right about that. Anthony Brown had a great game as well. I was going to get to him next. Anthony Brown is great when he can see what's coming to him. And I have to give kudos to the defensive coordinator, secondary coach, for whatever adjustment they've decided to make. Because we talked about this the past 2 years. Anthony Brown's biggest problem, which was the problem for all of our corners, they have issues playing with their backs to the ball. I see we got Charlie and Riker joining us. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate your support. I don't know what type of adjustments they've made, but when Anthony Brown has been able to kind of play off and use his speed to close in on separation and actually see what's coming in front of him, he's turned into a completely different cornerback. Yeah, all the coaches. I mean, we can go down the list. They've all just produced well. And thank you, Riker, for that. I definitely appreciate it. It's been a super busy week for me. I didn't get a chance to catch you guys' show yesterday. I'm sure you guys see my page. I have a photo booth company. I had a rare Tuesday booking, so I wasn't able to kind of watch. And then Wednesdays are super busy for me. But I will catch the show, Riker. I will catch up on it tomorrow. And looking forward to keeping up with the Joneses this Saturday with you guys. So, yeah, talking about Jordan Lewis, talking about Anthony Brown, 2 great games overall. And then you talk about Diggs. I don't know if anybody's talked about this, but the level of difficulty on that interception he had, I made a tweet about this. There's probably only a handful of receivers in the league that could have made that catch, and he made it effortlessly. Like, if you go back and really watch the play, he was running full speed in a trail position behind Kyle Pitts. When the ball came, he was past Pitts because he kind of misplayed a little bit. He had to come back like this and catch it behind his head. But he did it so quickly and so easily that most people didn't catch the difficulty in it. But he was literally, his body was moving one way. He was in the air, so he couldn't stop himself. So he reached back, caught the ball just like this, and brought it in. Great interception. Just a testament to his ball skills and his athleticism. Just like Stephen White said, athleticism off the charts. So overall, great game for everybody. Didn't even talk about the safeties. Again, when you don't bring up a position, that's always a positive. So shouts out to Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker, DeMonte KZ, J-Ron Curse. Those guys had a solid game also. Didn't give up a lot of deep play. Didn't give up any deep plays. Did a good job of protecting as our last line of defense. So that's pretty much all I could talk about with that Falcons game. I mean, we knocked them out after the first quarter. After that 4th and 7, that was pretty much a wrap. We demoralized them. The only thing I will say is the only negative I can take out of this game, our run defense. They didn't run the ball a lot, but if you go back and look at the few snaps Wayne Gallman had, he was getting 5, 6, 7 yards a carry whenever he wanted it. You go back and look at when Cordero Patterson, before he got hurt, he was gashing us a little bit too. Now, I talked about Atlanta's offensive line is good, so that's something you kind of expect, but we just took them out of the game so early they couldn't really take advantage of it. But when they did, they had some solid runs. So that's kind of concerning for this week as we go into our key matchups with the Chiefs. That's definitely something we got to pay attention to. And also the penalties, like I talked about when I first kicked off the show. Connor Williams is on the radar now. whether you like it or not, he's probably going to get a penalty a week. And it's not necessarily because he's a bad player, because I don't think he is. Certain players get reputations, just like on the opposite end of the spectrum. When you got a cornerback who has a reputation as a lockdown corner, they're going to get away with some defensive holdings and pass interferences that other cornerbacks wouldn't get the same benefit of. When you're known as a top 5 left tackle like a Trey Smith, he's going to get the benefit of the doubt on some holding calls every once in a while, because I've seen it on tape. There are a couple times where he's kind of gotten that offensive line hook around the neck, almost like a choke, and then let go of it quick. Most tackles, they call that. Tyron Smith's got away with a couple of them. So it works both ends of the spectrum. When you're Connor Williams and you're known for getting penalties, the refs are going to kind of hold that flag a little bit tighter when they see you out in space. But yeah, we're going to get probably one penalty a game from Connor Williams. I don't know what the record is. He's probably going to break it if it's more than 10, because I think he's at 5 or 6 now. So he's going to get one a game. And it's just a part of being on that radar. This is just not going to be his year when it comes to penalties. Yeah, he doesn't suck, but his penalties do suck. Luckily, he hasn't cost us a game yet with one of his penalties. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And Charlie says not worried about the run. We were 9th best run defense last week in case he doesn't run the ball. I got to talk about this, Charlie, because I went back and watched the last 4 games of the Chiefs, and there are some things to be concerned about with them running the ball. Let's go ahead and get into it real quick. We're at 33 minutes. I said I wasn't going to try to make this a long show. So let's go ahead and knock out some of these key matchups, Cowboys versus the Chiefs.
Key matchups.
All right, so let's get into it. Talking about some of these key matchups that we have to pay attention to. So we got to start here first. And I'm only doing this because Charlie's on the podcast right now. The first key matchup I got to talk about is the running back versus our linebackers. Now, I listed their top 3 linebackers. There were reports from Andy Reid this week that they probably won't activate Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week, but there could be a smokescreen just to throw us off, to make us not expect them to play. But if we go by what they say, this is going to be a Daryl Williams game. And Riker, Andy Reid said in a presser today that they may hold out Edwards-Helaire until after the bye week. I think they have a week. I think their bye week is week 12. So they may hold him out, or it could be a smokescreen so we don't expect him. I don't think he practiced last week. I haven't checked to see if he practiced this week. If somebody could pull that up, let me know. I'll try to pull it up myself also to see if he practiced today. All right, give me a second. So his 21-day window opened up today. Andy Reid said he was a stretch to play. He did say he had a better shot this week. So we'll just have to see. We'll definitely have to see. And Stephen White, we'll talk about this when we get to the receivers, how they use Tyreek Hill. Now I got to talk about Daryl Williams, because watching him on tape, Daryl Williams is a very solid runner He's a very good zone runner. He has that 1 foot in the ground and get upfield mentality. DJ Dog, just like you said, I was about to talk about this also when I get to receivers. He's going to keep them busy. Now, before I go into all my key matchups, let me put this statement out there when we talk about the Chiefs. Our two biggest allies in this game are going to be the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator of the Chiefs. When I watch them play, most of their mistakes that they've had the past 6 weeks have been coordinators, play calling, and personnel. And also Mahomes has to take a lot of this flack for this also. Daryl Williams is probably averaging about 5 yards a carry, but they refuse to run the ball, just like Charlie said. Now, I don't know. This might be the game where they start to kind of shift away from that, because on tape, when he runs it, they're open lanes everywhere. So that's kind of concerning to me. So the question is, will they take advantage of it? But Daryl Williams is a very good running back. And then they started to use Jeremy McKinnon more. And he's very good out of the backfield catching the ball. He's also a pretty solid runner inside, despite his size. And Mendoza says they do have Derek Gore too. One thing I noticed about Gore, and this makes me think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be activated. Last week, they didn't use him. That's for the season, though, Charlie. I'm just going by like the games that I watched. The games I watched, he was a 5-yard runner, a 4.5, 5-yard runner. I think they're trying to hide Derek Gore so they can snatch him back on the practice squad. I haven't seen him running a lot. They've been using the other two backs more. So that kind of makes me think they're trying to get him back, clear waiver so they can slide Edwards-Helaire in and keep Gore for the future. I haven't seen Gore run a lot in the past 2 weeks. The 2 weeks before that, he was very active in the running game. But these past 2 weeks, it's been more Williams and McKinnon. Yeah, Stephen White said I think he's getting his legs now. Yeah, he's a very solid runner. But Andy Reid has a history of abandoning the run. So hopefully they stay away from the run this week. But if they do decide to run it, Daryl Williams running the ball is something we should all be kind of concerned about and be aware of. All right, give me a second. So now we'll go to the offensive line now, because this impacts the running game. Now, when I look at their offensive line, we'll go from left to right. Orlando Brown, the guy they traded for from Baltimore. Very talented offensive lineman in Baltimore. I talked about this in the offseason, got blasted for it. He's not a great left tackle. He looks great at Baltimore because they run the ball 70% of the time. This is a completely different offense that he's in now. This offense, your quarterback's going to scramble around for 6 seconds and you have to maintain blocks. He's a solid tackle when it comes to pass coverage in this system. If he were in any other system, he'd probably be above average. But in this system, where he's expected to use his athleticism and stay with the guy for 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 seconds, this system does not suit him. And he's getting very good PFF grades. But when you watch the tape, he's holding blocks for 3 or 4 seconds. When it goes past that, which it does quite a bit for this offense, He's not able to engage. Left guard Joe Thuney, a monster. I loved watching this guy on tape. He is a very strong, mean left guard. So whoever our nose tackle is going to be this game, probably Tristan Hill and Carlos Watkins, they're going to have their work cut out for them. Okay, Charlie, going with the stats. I appreciate that. I'll definitely check that out, Charlie. I'll go back and look again. Thank you for pointing that out. I knew you would keep me honest when I brought up running backs doing good. So appreciate you hitting me up with that. I'm going to have to go back and watch those games to see how many of those were how many of those runs messed up his average. Like just trying to run the clock out runs, like in last week's game. All right, so Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, the center. They got two rookies on the inside. Creed Humphrey, I believe he's from Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Oklahoma. Creed Humphrey, the center. This guy might make the Pro Bowl this year. This is crazy that I say this because watching these linemen play, their line looks really good. So it amazes me why they don't run the ball and why Patrick Mahomes gets sacked so much. Creed Humphrey may be a top 5 center in the league right now. Definitely in run blocking because he is a grader. He uses his strength. He says, call Charlotte Wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah, we'll get to that, DJ Dog. Creed Humphrey is a monster inside. Then you go to right guard. Trey Smith from Tennessee, another rookie, having a very solid season. Now, he struggles a little bit when it comes to athletic defensive tackles. I noticed that when they played against the Giants, he was having some trouble. Also against Green Bay, he had a little bit of trouble inside. But when it comes to run blocking, like these guys are winning way more times than not. The few times they do run the ball. So Osa may be able to take advantage of that. Or even Dorrance Armstrong if they decide to put him inside. Trey Smith, solid guard, very good when it comes to run blocking. Has issues with athleticism on the inside, so something to be aware of. Now we go to this right tackle spot, and this is where it gets fun at. Andrew Wiley, if you guys remember the Super Bowl, this was the right tackle who gave up 9 pressures and I believe 3 sacks that game, 2 or 3 sacks. Andrew Wiley is not a good tackle. They tried to put some other guy in front of him after their starting right tackle got hurt. That guy got hurt last week, I believe, so they were forced to start Wiley. And he was a turnstile over there. So expect to see Micah Parsons lined up in front of Andrew Wiley and expect Micah Parsons to have a lot of pressures and a lot of sacks. I wouldn't be shocked to see them try to isolate Parsons quite a bit on Wiley in pass rushing situations. All right, Charlie digging deep into his bag of tricks. They beat the Giants by 3, so wasn't a lot of running out the clock. Struggle versus Green Bay, so no running out the clock. Got mollywopped by Tennessee, so a lot of passing. Everything you said is true, Charlie. I can't disagree with that. But I'm just telling you, when I watched them run the ball, he looked very good and he was getting a lot of yardage. So I'll go back, if you want me to, I'll go back and scrutinize the game even more to watch every single run to see what kind of happened to drop his average below 4. Because the runs that stood out to me, he was getting 5-6 yards. But can't argue with stats. So definitely 3.6. That's not a great average. I just got to see what it was. DJ Dog saying, I like Parsons against either of their tackles. I agree. Orlando Brown doesn't scare me, especially in this offense where Patrick Mahomes has a tendency to hold the ball and try to play magician. And yeah, we all agree on this, Charlie. They don't run the ball a lot, which looking at their offensive line and looking at the success they have when they do intentionally run is very surprising. So watching their games, they struggle a lot because of Mahomes. And that's crazy to say when you consider how much Mahomes is getting paid, how great he's looked the past 2 to 3 years. When I watch them play, Mahomes is constantly looking for the home run. He's holding the ball too long. He's keeping his eyes too focused downfield instead of watching what's happening at the line of scrimmage. And he has a tendency to scramble backwards instead of stepping up in the pocket. And when you scramble backwards against the NFL defensive line, very few times is something positive going to happen with that. So those things are definitely things to take advantage of and be considerate of. And like Mendoza said, the O-line is brand new. They got two rookies starting. Orlando Brown is a new guy. Joe Thuney is a new guy. And their right tackle was a new guy also. So they're starting to gel, but they still don't run the ball considering how good they look in limited play. And DJ Dog, you talk about he holds the ball a lot for big plays. The last game, he broke some of those tendencies. And we're going to talk about that in a minute because you brought this up, DJ Dog, at the beginning of the show. The way teams have beat Kansas City, they've gone straight cover 2 zone. They know the Chiefs aren't going to run the ball, so their linebackers just bail back 7 yards and get in their sets. The safeties stay deep in their hashes. The corners usually play off and just keep their eyes in the backfield. They make sure nothing gets behind them. And Mahomes just sits and passes the ball and backpedals and waits for a guy to try to break the wall between the linebackers and the safeties and throwing it off his back foot. He hasn't been able to do that. And Charlie asked me a good question. I wonder how we will play them because we have been playing a lot of man. But the secret to beating them, which Tennessee kind of exposed, is playing that cover 2. So, good question. Will we go back to what we do or will we change it for this week? And that's one of those key matchups we have to pay attention to. And I was going to get to that with the defense, but Charlie, DJ Dog, thank you guys for bringing it up because it's definitely something that we have to be aware of. And Jeff, you brought up a great point. He loves to scramble to his right, cutting off half the field. And you have to guard from the hash to the sideline. So let's go. I see DJ Dog brought up Kelsey as his key. So let's go ahead and go to our next key matchup, and that's actually where I was going to next. So let's go to the tight end position. And there are really only 2 guys to talk about. One guy, really, but I just put 2 up there because they have 2 tight ends. So this is where the game will be won and lost at, in my opinion. And this is Travis Kelce. And this is going against our safeties, not our corners. I don't think this is going to be the game where we play him like we played Kyle Pitts last week, like a receiver. Travis Kelce is a true tight end who's just an athletic mismatch. So I think we're going to have to play him with our safeties, specifically Jaron Kearse and probably Malik Hooker. And yeah, Noah Gray is the 3rd tight end. I think he got hurt last week, Mendoza, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see if he even plays this week. And Jeff says he's anxious to see Kearse versus Kelce. Kearse actually matches up really well with Kelce in terms of height, weight, speed. toughness. Because Kelsey does a lot of his winning because of his athleticism, for his size, and his toughness, where he just bullies guys. He's not going to bully Curse. So I'm interested to see this matchup. And if you go back and watch the game last week, one thing that they did this past week that they didn't do in weeks past, even though Kelsey did miss a couple of games, Mahomes took what the defense gave him in terms of short yardage matchups with Kelsey in particular. And he allowed that to open up the rest of the offense in terms of going deep. And then when plays broke down, Kelsey made a couple plays also. Charlie talks about Mike Crum, brought up a good D on pass defense. Parsons on the edge, Wilson and Curse at linebacker, Hooker and KZ playing too high. Yeah, I was definitely going to talk about this when I got the defense. And I either made a tweet about it or I brought it up in one of my groups. I think this is a week we have to play exclusively a 3 safety set. You have to keep Hooker, KZ, Wilson too deep. And you almost have to play Curse like your nickel linebacker. He has to be at the line of scrimmage. He has to be guarding Kelsey out off the line of scrimmage. And on top of that, by doing so, now you're allowed to do what our guy Eric likes to talk about and play Parsons as a full-time defensive end. Because if you got Curse and you got you got Neal and Van Der Esch rotating at that other linebacker spot, that allows you to keep more athleticism in your second line of defense. And it also allows you to take advantage of that big mismatch between Parsons and their tackles. DJ Dog says Blake Bell going in motion with Mahomes and shotgun. Bell will double back and get under the center and run the ball to pick up short yardage downs. Yeah, that is a wrinkle they like to do. Something we should have done. I mean, they call them the Bell Dozer for a reason. They do love to take advantage of that, and they're not going to risk Patrick Mahomes anymore after what happened last year with that, was it his dislocated knee, I believe, that made him miss a couple of games. And Stephen White says you have to keep Yak to a minimum. 87-10 will make catches. That's definitely true. Stephen White says swarm and punch the ball. We give it up. Jeff says jam Kelsey off the line. I don't know if you can jam Kelsey off the line, Jeff. I don't know about that one. If you can get away with it, that's cool. But I like the matchup so much, I don't think you have to jam him off the line. And there are ways they can keep Kelsey off the line of scrimmage to prevent you from jamming him, putting him in motion, just put him off the line of scrimmage in general. All right, so now we got to go to the last offensive key matchup for the Chiefs. And, of course, that's the wide receivers. Really, there's only one to talk about. And that's the one at the top, Tyreek Hill. Watching the past 4 games, yeah, DJ Dog, Noah Gray, the Duke rookie tight end, definitely right. I think he got hurt last week, so I don't know how much we're going to see of him this week. And Mendoza said this is a game we need to be sound on tackling, limit the yak as much as possible. Definitely. Talking about this game, and you start at the top, Tyreek Hill. Almost all of Tyreek Hill damage was done at or behind the line of scrimmage. I think he had, let me go back and look at how many catches he had this past week. Whatever his catches were, I would probably guess, let's see, he had 7 catches for 83 yards. I would be shocked that of his 7 catches, 5 of them were screen passes and hitches. He did not get a lot of catches past the line of scrimmage. And that kind of goes back to what DJ Dog and Charlie talked about with the cover 2 and the corners playing off and keeping everything in front of them. They took advantage of that by throwing quick hitches to Tyreek Hill, getting him in open space, and let him take advantage of his speed and athleticism. And like Stephen White said, most passes from Patrick Mahomes were 13 max. Also, most of those catches were to Travis Kelsey. Nobody got deep. I talk about the number 2 receiver. Actually, and Amanda, thank you for joining. Definitely appreciate your support. Their number 2 receiver, Machole Hartman, I can probably move him down to wide receiver 5 now. The past 4 weeks, he has not been involved in the offense whatsoever. And that's crazy considering how fast he is. He probably rivals Tyreek Hill in terms of straight line speed. They've been pushing him further and further down the depth chart. And the past 2 weeks, Josh Gordon has been that number 2. They use Josh Gordon quite a bit in dummy routes and blocking. Josh Gordon's a big receiver. So something for you guys to pay attention to. If you ever see Josh Gordon and Tyreek Hill on the same side, expect it to be a screen or a hitch because Josh Gordon is going to be out there blocking for him. Demaryius Robinson has been getting a lot of play in terms of receiver, but really nobody's catching the ball other than Hill and Kelsey. And most of Hill's damage is coming 5 yards or less. He's not getting much deep past the line of scrimmage. And that's mostly because teams been playing that cover 2. Now, if we go away from the cover 2 and play more man, that might change this week, but we'll see. And great stat, Mendoza, talking about the top targets. Hill, Kelsey, Hartman. I would be shocked in the past 4 weeks that Hartman's had 5 catches. So a lot of that probably came, Mendoza, in the first 8 weeks. Well, I take that back. He had 5 catches against the Giants. He only had 2 against the Raiders, 3 against Green Bay. But yeah, he had a small window where he had a bunch of catches. But other than that, he's been a 2 or 3 catch guy. And the past 3 weeks, like I said, he's been getting slowly phased out of the offense. And guys like Robinson and Gordon have been getting a lot more snaps. And Amanda, this has the potential to be a good game, definitely. And we'll get to our offense against their defense in a minute because at every spot, I think we have the matchup in a big way. And DJ Dog said Hill does those long developing corner routes and is almost impossible to single cover. That's true, but when teams play cover 2 and they've been getting pressure on Mahomes, we haven't seen them take advantage of that as much. So it really all depends on what our defensive coordinators decide to do in terms of pass coverage. If they decide to play more cover 2, does Mahomes take what the offense gives them? Or what I've seen in a couple of games, he's at home. He wants to take the big shot. He wants to get the crowd involved. He holds the ball too long. He takes a sack that kills the drive, or he throws a very bad interception. That's what I've seen quite a bit from Patrick Mahomes. And they're at home. It's a big game, prime time. I'm expecting Patrick Mahomes to have a couple turnovers this game just because of him trying to force it and show that he's still the guy. All right, guys, we're in an hour. Now let's go to our offense against their defense because right here it's plus matchups all across the board. So we'll go to the one that people are going to key on the most, and this is their defensive line versus our offensive line. It's definitely going to be loud, Stephen White, for sure. Now, let me preface it with this. Steve Spagnuolo is the Chiefs' worst enemy. None of his moves make sense in terms of the scheme they run, the way he has personnel, and the overall just philosophy. It makes no sense, and it shows in games. I'm shocked the team hasn't turned on him so far because of how bad things look on this team. I think they're like 29th against the pass and 28th against the run, and it shows on tape because if you look at these names that I'm showing you on the screen right now, Chris Jones, Derek Nottie, Jerron Reed, Frank Clark. Chris Jones is a top 5 defensive tackle in this league. Jerron Reed is coming off, 8 sacks during this time with Seattle as a defensive tackle. Frank Clark was a very solid defensive tackle for Seattle. Derek Nottie, Mendoza's guy from Florida State. One of those big athletic defensive tackles, probably 340, but plays like he's closer to 300. And then they traded for Melvin Ingram. And we all know that name from being a first-round pick and his success with the Chargers. This is their defensive line. And I'm telling you guys, the way the coordinator uses them, we have nothing to be afraid of. And let's start right here. If you guys see my mouse, this does not say defensive tackle. This says left end. They play Chris Jones 60% of the time as a left defensive end. That makes no sense whatsoever from a guy who's a 6 or 7 sack defensive tackle, Pro Bowl defensive tackle. They play him at left end a lot. Now, last week, the reason I put Melvin Gordon on this list is because last week was his first game of extensive play. So they did have a few more lineups where it was Melvin Ingram and Frank Clark at the ends. They took Derek Nottie off the field. I'm sorry, they took Jerron Reed off the field, and Chris Jones played defensive tackle. That happened last week more than any other game during the season. But Chris Jones is still their starting end, and he's playing about 50% of the snaps there. And Mendoza throwing out some other names out there. Alex Okafor, another guy I like. He's starting to kind of get phased out with them bringing Melvin Ingram in. And then also he brings up Kalen Saunders, a guy came in the league about, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago. Solid guy from a small school, not getting a lot of reps right now on this defense. But Jaron Reed, I'll say this. Jaron Reed looks like he looks like our old defensive tackles. He's gonna try to get out. He's gonna try to get upfield. He's gonna run himself out of the play. He's gonna get penetration, but there's a lack of discipline in this game, and he opens up a lot of run lanes for offenses. Frank Clark is not very good against the run. I've seen him quite often get sealed off by tackles and tight ends. Chris Jones is very good against the run, but again, they play him at left defensive end. So when teams are running up the middle or running to the right, which a lot of teams running to the left, which a lot of teams tend to do against them, it almost neutralizes him in terms of his effectiveness against the run. So pay attention. There are going to be a lot of runs to the left this game. I'm predicting it right now. And there's going to be a lot of successful runs to the left also. Pass rush, once again, they got their best pass rusher playing out of position, Chris Jones. He hasn't been as effective as he has been in the past. They also have a tendency to run some 3-3 defensive line groupings where they'll have Jones, Noddy, and Reed, and then they'll stand up Frank Clark as like a linebacker. Again, just get ran all over. So I'm looking forward to this game in terms of that. I think we should have a lot of successful runs this game. I think we're going to do very well against the pass in this game as well because they're not playing guys in the positions they should be in. And DJ Dog talks about the other positions that we're about to get into. And Stephen White says, just win if we have to run and break this team to get it. If we don't let them get a bunch of splash plays, I can definitely see this being a game where we run the ball quite a bit and kill them on some play actions because they're very susceptible to that as well. As I go into our next key matchup, going deeper into their defense, and this is their linebacker core. It's a couple names on here you guys recognize. First of all, we got to talk about Anthony Hitchens, former Cowboy. Lay some helmets on him, yeah. Anthony Hitchens, middle linebacker. Something interesting that stood out to me the past 4 weeks for the 4 games I watched. How they play their linebackers makes no sense to me. Like, for example, Anthony Hitchens is their Mike. They have Willie Gay listed as their Sam and Nick Bolton. If you guys remember him, he was kind of the guy in all the draft circuits from Missouri. They have him listed as their wheel linebacker. But when you watch them play, Willie Gay almost plays like their Mike because he's always on the field in the middle, and they expect them to make big plays. And then I put the nickelback Ben Neiman. He's mainly a special teamer, but like I said before, they like to go with a lot of 3-man lineups, a lot of nickel lineups. They even do a lot of dime. And they take their starting 3 linebackers off the field, and they put in Ben Neiman as like a cover linebacker. I guess he's their best cover guy. So you're going to see a lot of him too. But what's weird about Willie Gay, loved him out of Mississippi State, by the way. Off the field issues prevent him from being a first-round pick. He plays like a guy with his hair on fire. He runs himself out of position quite a bit. This is, one of the biggest problems they have in their run defense. So pay attention to Willie Gay. He's going to get shot. He's going to shoot through gaps. He's going to shoot through the wrong gaps. Combination of him and their defensive line, there are going to be a lot of big runs this week. I'm looking for several 8+ yard runs up the middle this game. Anthony Hitchens, they have him listed as their Mike. He's probably playing only 40% of the snaps. And Nick Bolton is kind of splitting those other 40% with him. I know people like Nick Bolton. I talked about this during draft season. Nick Bolton has an issue getting off of blocks, and it shows in the NFL. When he plays in the open field, he looks great. But if anybody gets their hands on him, they pretty much got him. And I think that's one of the reasons he's not been on the field as much. So look for our running game to really tear them up on the inside. And Amanda saying the biggest concern for me looking forward is this 3 games in 12-day stretch. That's definitely something to be concerned about. The Chiefs game is the first hurdle. If we can get through this game without any injuries and without it being just like a knockdown, drag-out fight, I see Oakland quickly declining. I won't say slowly. Oakland is quickly declining. On defense, their secondary is decimated. And we'll probably talk about this next week, but their defense is decimated. Their starting safety couldn't cover me in open space, a guy that a lot of Cowboy fans wanted, and Jonathan Banks. Their corners are quickly just dwindling down to the bottom of the depth chart. Defensive line is still solid. Their defensive end is a monster in Max Crosby, but around him, the other guys aren't living up to what they should be. I'll save it for next week. I can go into Oakland because I watch them a lot. I don't know why. I end up watching a lot of Oakland games. But yeah, back to the Chiefs. So their linebackers, Willie Gay is the guy to circle because he's going to be on the field a lot. And he's going to shoot the wrong gaps. In coverage, all the linebackers look lost. Like when the ball snapped, it's almost like they're just looking around like, see, what's going on? What's happening? So I expect our tight ends to have a solid game. Once again, I think the play action is going to be killer for them because their linebackers are so lost. I think the middle is going to be open. Thank you, Mendoza. I have a tendency to keep saying Oakland, the Las Vegas Raiders. We'll talk about this next Thursday or next Wednesday. All right, so look for Willie Gay on Sunday. He might make a couple splash plays just because height, weight, speed, he's just a freak, and he might guess right one time. But for the most part, he's going to be our biggest ally on top of Spagnuolo, keeping him on the field 70, 80% of the time. All right, we'll go to the last position group now. And guys, if you have any questions or comments, be sure to put them up there. I hate when it's a bunch of shows where I just do a bunch of talking. I love it when you guys bring some great questions and some great comments up and spark a different dialogue outside of the stuff that I have prepared. And Jeff, if you want to come in for a few minutes, let me know. I'm probably going to be out of here in the next 10 minutes if you don't. But if you want to come on and just talk about anything, feel free. All right, let's go to the last position group. And I kind of lumped all these together, just the secondary. And like DJ Dog talked about, we got another familiar name here. Thank you, Steven. I've been appreciating all your support in the comments as well. So we got Tarvarius Ward, their starting left corner. And one thing I like about the Chiefs, which is good for us, their corners don't move. So Ward's going to be on the left. L'Jarius Sneed's going to be on the right. And then they have Rashard Fenton, who comes in as their slot. All right, don't worry about it, Jeff. Maybe next week. Now, looking at their corners are actually, in my opinion, solid. But against our receivers, they don't have a chance. Like, Tarvarius Ward is a height, weight, speed guy. So whenever he does win, he wins off pure athleticism. That's not going to get you anything here going against a guy like a Michael Gallup, who's pretty much the same way. And L'Jarius Sneed, he's very good. L'Jarius Sneed reminds me of our corners, Jordan Lewis. About a 5'10" guy, scrappy guy, very good tackler. Probably going to see him come with some corner blitzes. Very solid tackler. Fairly good in open space, but he has to see it. And they do have those two guys too, Mendoza, and I'll talk about them in a minute. And then Rashard Fenton is kind of the best guy they got available. DeAndre Baker's been inactive the past couple of weeks, Mendoza. So I don't know why. Well, I know why he's not a good corner. But DeAndre Baker has been inactive for several weeks, some due to injury, some due to just poor play. And then they also have, like Mendoza said, Armani Watts and Mike Hughes. Mike Hughes, former first-round pick out of UCF, drafted in the first round by the Minnesota Vikings. He's on this team. And then Armani Watts, a corner that I love, corner/safety that I loved coming out of college, out of Texas A&M. Now, they haven't been able to get these guys on the field much because Charvarius Ward plays about 100% of the snaps, which is ridiculous for a corner. L'Jarius Sneed plays about 90 or so percent of the snaps as well. Stephen White, you said special teams or where? Which player are you talking about? Let me know. So their corners pretty much play where they are. They play a lot of man, which is surprising considering their corners aren't very good. So we're going to have a lot of matchups with our receivers versus their corners. And then we go to the safety position. And this is my favorite position to talk about because we see the names. The two I just said, Armani Watts and Mike Hughes, they're trying to squeeze Mike Hughes in the cornerback room. I noticed that the past 2 weeks. But Charvarius Ward plays so many snaps, it's hard to get him out there because Mike Hughes is strictly an outside corner. He can't play in the slot. Same for Ward. And Sneed may actually be their best corner. Well, he is their best corner. So they try to keep him on the field as much as possible also. And Armani Watts, they actually play him more at safety than cornerback that Mendoza brought up. Now, I talked about the defenses that they like to run. They run some weird defenses, kind of like what I talked about, what we should run this week with 3 safeties. They run a lot of 3 safety sets, which again is the reason why I think our run game should be so great this game. So they got Warren Thornhill, a name every Cowboy fan knows. And it'll come up quite a bit with Thornhill, Tristan Hill this week. And then Tyrann Mathieu, the ball hawk himself, he just kind of plays how he wants to play. Thornhill kind of plays deepest man. And then I put in Daniel Sorensen. I could also put in Armani Watts right here. Now, Stephen White says Sorensen runs the field. When I watch the games, if there's one number that you guys as Cowboy fans should remember, number 49 for the Chiefs. Daniel Sorensen is Jeff Heath without the big plays. The big plays for their team. Whenever you guys see 49 on the field, and I don't normally say this a lot, I guarantee you, look for the team to pick on him whenever he's on the field. If he plays 100% of the snaps, they're going to pick on him 100% of the snaps. This guy has been giving up big plays left and right all over the field. And once again, the reason I love Spagnuolo, the first 5 weeks of the season, Sorensen was their starting free safety over Thornhill. The last 4 weeks, Thornhill has been starting, but he still finds a way to get Sorensen on the field. And that's why they started going to this weird dime nickel look where they just find a way to get Sorensen out there. They play him like a linebacker. He covers tight ends. They try to get cute and make you wonder who's going to be the deep safety, and sometimes it's Sorensen and Thornhill comes down. Watch 49. Wherever he is, you're going to hear his name a lot, and not in a good way for the Kansas City Chiefs. And you're going to see a lot of frustrated looks from Tyron Smith. Now, Tyron Mathieu. Tyrann Mathieu is still a baller. I don't want to take anything from him. But they've got so many matchups we could take advantage of. We don't have to really worry about him. At this point in Tyrann Mathieu's career, from what I've seen, he's almost like his own defensive coordinator. Like, he literally just plays wherever he wants to play. He goes up, he goes down, he gets in the box, he goes deep. It almost looks like The other 10 guys are running one defense, and Matthew is kind of doing his own thing. And so far, he hasn't been burned by it, and that's just a testament to his athleticism and just his overall skill set as an NFL safety. And Mendoza says they're last in covering tight ends. You're definitely right on that. A lot of that goes back to Sorensen because, like I said, they play him in formations where they bring him on the field as a third safety, and they let him cover safe. They let him cover tight ends. Going back to the linebackers, their linebackers again are offering coverage, so their cornerbacks are pretty much on their own. They're not getting a lot of support from the linebackers in terms of playing their zones and knowing how to play them correctly. So this one is going to be interesting. I don't see any way they can stop us from moving the ball. We have a much, much better chance of stopping them offensively if we follow the blueprint that Leslie Frazier gave us a couple of weeks ago, and the Giants and the Packers and the football team tried to follow as well. And Stephen White says number 13 is going to make up from being on IR. Like I said at the very beginning of the show, number 13, Michael Gallup, makes this offense look completely different because unlike Cedric Wilson, which is a solid player, you have to game plan for Michael Gallup. If he's one-on-one with a corner, he's going to get the ball, whether it's your number one corner, number two corner, and more times than not, he's going to win. So that allows you to put CeeDee Lamb in the slot, and you really can't double him or bracket him because your safeties have to play honest. So it's going to be a very interesting game. I'm looking forward to seeing Ward versus Gallup. Snead versus Coop should be a good matchup. Snead's a feisty guy. He likes to stay engaged. But this should be a CeeDee Lamb game. I'm expecting a lot of big runs. Even if we don't have a lot of rushing yards, I expect us to have several runs that are for at least 8 yards. And like Stephen White said, no team can match our wideouts. And I've been saying this every week also. For the people who talk bad about Anthony Brown, we're at week 11. I still have not seen a team that we've played who had a better number 2 corner than Anthony Brown. And I would be bold enough to say half the teams we've played haven't had a better number 1 than Anthony Brown. So that's just a testament to how great he's playing. So on offense, we gotta contain Travis Kelce. That's number 1. Number 2, we have to watch Tyreek Hill on the quick throws. You almost may want to be in a press and bail technique with Tyreek Hill. Just because if you play off him too much, Mahomes is going to keep throwing that hitch and that screen and those little push passes to get him those cheap yards. And on defense, we have to take advantage of the matchups. On our offense, we have to pay attention to Gay and Sorensen if he's on the field. If Sorensen's not on the field, let's just let our wideouts do what they do. And let's run the ball and beat them on some play action. Because like I said before, Chris Jones has been playing defensive end. And as long as they keep Chris Jones at defensive end, I'm not concerned about that pass rush whatsoever because Derek Nottie is not a pass rushing defensive tackle. And Jaron Reed is a solid pass rushing defensive tackle. But he's going to hurt himself so much in the run game, I think we can make him back off. Frank Clark's, I don't know if it's because of the scheme or because he's taking a step back. He's not the same guy he is. Melvin Ingram Last week was his first real reps. So I don't know what he is as a player either. But I don't think he's the game wrecker that he's been in the past. All right, guys, that's pretty much all I got in terms of my key matchups. Let me do a couple of over-unders and then we'll get out of here. So if you guys are still with me, let's do a couple over-unders and see what you guys think about this game.
Over-under.
All right, guys. So we'll start with our defense first. Over under 1.5. I won't say turnovers. I won't say interceptions. I'll say turnovers. Over under 1.5 turnovers for our defense. Interceptions or fumbles. Yes, Stephen White. I wanted our defensive ends back for this game too. This would have been a great game for them to take advantage of, especially with the right tackle that they have. All right, Steven says over. Charlie says over also. Since I asked the question, okay, Mendoza says 2. Okay, everybody's saying over. So let's follow up on that question. How many of those are interceptions? How many interceptions does Patrick Mahomes throw? Just curious. Are all the turnovers interceptions? Yeah, I'm with you, Charlie. I think we get the full complement of our defense for that Saints game. I don't expect anybody to come back before that Saints game, honestly. So Mendoza saying just 1 turnover from Patrick Mahomes. Stephen White saying 1 turnover, 2 fumbles. Charlie says 2 picks. I'm with you, Charlie. I think Mahomes throws 2 interceptions because he's going to force one to Hill. And if there's anybody who can jump and make a play on the ball with Tyreek Hill, it's Trayvon Diggs. And I have no faith in their other receivers. So he's going to have to eventually throw it at them. And I like their receivers. I like our corners more than their receivers. Stephen White says Osa gets a turnover. Jeff says a Kelsey fumble. Mahomes pick. Kelsey has been putting the ball on the ground a little bit. Stephen White taking up to 4 turnovers now. So definitely something to pay attention to. All right, guys. So Patrick Mahomes is really elusive. Once again, they got Sorensen on one side, Orlando Brown on the other. Over, under. This is a hard one because we don't have our ends. I want to say over, under 3 sacks for our defense, but I feel like that's too high. Let's do over, under 2 sacks. I'm just telling you guys right now, if there was a Vegas line on whether or not Micah Parsons gets 1 sack this game, I would probably empty my bank account on it. If they put Micah Parsons on Wiley, there's no way he doesn't get a sack this game. So that's one right there. Between our other linebackers and defensive linemen, can they get another sack? Because I think we all pretty much agree Parsons is getting 1. All right, Stephen White says 3. Jeff says a push. Riker says Parsons is the only sack. All right, we're not doing game predictions. Stephen White says DA gets 1 too. I can see that also. We're not doing game predictions, but if you guys want to put your scores in the comments, that's fine. Or tune in to Keeping Up with the Joneses this Saturday with myself, Charlie, and Riker, and we'll be doing our game predictions on there. So my next over-under, Offense hasn't been that good lately for the Chiefs. Over under the Chiefs scoring 24 points. I'm just curious where you guys are in terms of what type of game you think this will be. Over under 24 points for the Chiefs this game. And let me know what you guys think on that one. I mean, looking at all the scores, I mean, they blew out the Raiders. But again, like I said, the Raiders are circling the drain at this point. Before that, I mean, they've only scored more than 24 points 3 times this year. And in 3 of those games, they got up early and then got shut down the second half. Okay. Stephen White says he hasn't had the dream yet. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know where we are in terms of scores or who wins. I'm just curious on what you guys think the Chiefs are going to score. And Riker says, I don't know my score yet. Waiting for Charlie to say his, then I disagree. Charlie says over, though. Stephen White puts him right at 24. Mendoza thinks it's going to be a classic one, back and forth. Last with the ball wins more than likely. I'm thinking is what you think. Riker has him over. Stephen White saying they scored 24. Okay. So it seems like most people think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I'm just curious because I think that 41 points against the Raiders was kind of fool's gold. I just think the Raiders are circling the drain. You go back and look before that, they only scored 13 against the Packers. They scored 20 against a bad Giants defense, in my opinion. They scored 3 against the Titans. So, interesting. Jeff says shootout, but they might get 24. So Jeff thinks it's going to be a close game. All right. We're at an hour 33 minutes. Mendoza said this is a game in my preseason prediction I had us losing. I feel better now than I did then. I'm on the same boat as you, Mendoza. Mendoza saying 38-36. I already got his score set. Pretty much like I thought. I guess the last team with the ball wins the game in a high-scoring shootout. Okay, it's interesting. So now, let's do a couple over-unders for our offense. Over-under. Let me look up the stats real quick before I say this one. All right, before I do the one I got to look up. Over-under 50 yards for Zeke. Over-under 50 yards. I'm curious what you guys think about this one. Stephen White putting pick sixes up there. Mendoza says over. Stephen White says over first quarter. You've been putting some bold predictions out there, Stephen White. I'm almost in agreement with you on this one. I think Zeke gashes them early and sets the tone. Jeff said Jeff gives him 150. That would be something. Definitely not impossible, though. All right. So got another one for you. So Lamb had a great game last week. 6 catches, 94 yards. We're going to do 2 over-unders with our receivers. First of all, over-under one of our receivers, 7 catches. Over-under 7 catches for one of our receivers. And if you want to put which receiver it is, feel free. Stephen White saying over. right, Jeff saying it's going to be a Zeke game. Riker says under, they'll catch a lot, but it'll be spread around. And that's kind of where I was leading to. I was interested in what you guys thought about that. Jeff has over for Coop. Mendoza says over for CD. Charlie says Lamb will get over, maybe Cooper and Lamb or Gallup and Lamb. So you think 2 people get over 7 catches? That'd be interesting. All right, I just pulled this up real quick. So follow-up question. Since you guys kind of think a couple of people will go over. Over under 60 yards receiving for one receiver. So, do you guys think more than one receiver get 60 yards or more? Last week, CeeDee Lamb was the only one to get over 60 yards in a blowout game. And actually, Pollard was our second leading receiver with 56 yards, which I told you guys what happened because of how the Falcons run their defense. Okay, Mendoza saying over, Charlie over, Stephen White. Riker says Gallup and somebody else. Jeff has all 3 receivers going over 60 yards. That would be interesting to see. Definitely possible. Now, let's do one more over under because this is kind of telling me what you guys think about this game. Dalton Schultz only had 1 catch last week when he's normally been averaging about 5 catches a game. Over under 4 catches for Dalton Schultz this week. Stephen White says we get more plays this game to be racking yards. Charlie says he expects KC to score more than Atlanta, so we'll pass more this game and won't risk starters. That's a good point. I didn't even consider. We did pretty much pull all our starters at the end of the third. Okay, Stephen White says over 4 catches for Dalton Schultz. Charlie says under. Riker has him at a push. Mendoza has over. Well, that's in line with Mendoza's shootout theory. So definitely, you got 2 guys going over 60 yards, and then your tight end getting more than 4 catches. All right, let's do one more over under. And we didn't talk about this storyline. It sounds like Tyron Smith may be ready to play this week. Tomorrow we'll probably kind of tell the tale. I think he did limited work today, so it depends on how much he's involved in practice tomorrow. So we'll see if they shut him down tomorrow or they do him limited again. So let's do 2 more over unders. Over under 8 pressures on Dak. 8 pressures over under. And then we'll do the last one. Schultz has only had 7 the past 3 games. Well, this past week he only had 1. Okay. Charlie with confidence saying under 8 pressures for Dak. Mendoza says under. Riker says under. All right. Last over under 1 sack. Dak gets sacked 1 time. over, under, push. Curious what you guys think about our offensive line now. You guys on board with Terrence Steele now? Yeah, let me know what you guys think. 1 sack, over, under. Everybody saying push. Okay. All right, interesting. All right, so I just wanted to put it out there to get an idea of what you guys think about the game this week. Give you guys something to think about when you come up with your game predictions. And like I said before, make sure you tune in to Keeping Up with the Joneses this Saturday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Myself, Charlie, Riker will be pretty much following up on all the discussions I had tonight. I'll go back and watch Charlie to watch Daryl Williams and see what happened to make him have under 4 yards of carry. And we'll also talk about the game more, some of these matchups. We'll have a better idea of who's playing and who's not. And we'll do our game predictions. And we might have a special guest. You never know. So be sure to tune in this Saturday, 8 p.m. Central Time, with Keeping Up with the Joneses. You can catch us on Facebook. You can catch us on YouTube, my channel, Charlie's channel, Riker's channel, wherever you like to watch your Cowboys news and notes. Riker says she may be there. It just depends on Charlie. That's understandable. All right, guys. And once again, thank you guys for watching. Another good show. Appreciate you guys' support as always. Great questions, great comments. Thank you for being engaged as long as you were. We were at an hour 43 minutes. Our views were a little bit lower than they usually are, but there were a lot of podcasts on tonight. A lot of people had special guests, and that kind of dilutes the Cowboys community. So once again, thank you guys who shared it. Thank you guys for your comments. Thank you for liking. I may start bringing more guests on, but to be honest, I talked about this with Lambo last year. If you guys remember last year, we had guests on every week. And at some point, we kind of came down to the realization, is the show about us? Is the show about you guys? Or is the show about the guests we're bringing in? And we did not want it to be number 3. We either want the show to be about us talking football or you guys talking football. And we felt like bringing in guests is pretty much you're just listening to somebody's opinion who in most cases doesn't know more than I do or you guys do. So we kind of limit guests unless it's somebody who can really talk to us about a specific thing or somebody that I feel like we could all learn from as a group. So I'll try to bring on more guests if possible, but more than likely, you guys will be hanging with me talking Cowboys news and notes and storylines and matchups. So once again, catch us this Saturday, 8 o'clock. Also catch me on the Cowboy Zone every Wednesday night, 8:30 Central Standard Time. I'm keeping in touch with Lambo. Hopefully he'll be back soon. Looks like things are going better for him. He's getting things figured out. So hopefully we'll get Lambo back. And we haven't hit any rivalry weeks yet. Maybe I can get Cowboy Dale to join us for a Thanksgiving special video. We'll see. Definitely during rivalry week. But until then, be sure to tune in 8:30 Central Standard Time. Because it's Thanksgiving week, I may have somebody come on the show with us to talk about the game against the Raiders. So tune in. Key matchups, storylines. Hopefully we'll have another Victory Wednesday to talk about how we embarrassed the Kansas City Chiefs this week. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Mendoza. And that's one of the reasons we love it too. We don't want to take away from the fans. We don't have a lot of fans like some other people have, but we really do value the fans that we have. And we just hope that we can continue to to expand the Cowboy Zone community and have a lot of good questions and dialogues going on in here, because there are a lot of groups where you see people making posts, and sometimes it's some good stuff, sometimes it's not so good, sometimes it's sarcastic, but you don't really have a outlet to really discuss it with those fans. And we want the Cowboy Zone to be that type of outlet where fans can come in and give us their opinions. I'll try to make a couple of topics just to give us something to talk about, and then you guys take it from there. So hopefully we continue to grow, continue to support us so we can get to where we want to be. So continue to like, continue to follow, continue to share. You can find me, Bluff City Cowboys, on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can find me on Twitter at Bluff Cowboys. Once again, you can catch me back here next Wednesday, 8:30 Central Standard Time. Hopefully, Lambeau joins us. And if not, you can also catch me this Saturday with Rika and Charlie on Keeping Up with the Joneses. Also, make sure you guys check out on Tuesday. Rika has a great show. Rika Moves the Chains. She has great guests, great dialogue with herself and Charlie. So if you guys can't wait till Wednesday to see what we're talking about in the Cowboy Zone, make sure you go follow that show, like, and subscribe as well, because they're doing some big things also. That's pretty much all I have. Once again, guys, thank you for watching. If you haven't done so already, make sure you like. You can also still make sure you share this, because even though the show is over with, there are still some people that need to see the great discussions that we had tonight. So, once again, I'm Marcus, Bluff City Cowboy, signing out. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next week.